top priority is consistency of clearing. So like, how likely are you to clear this job with the RNG in mind? And second thing is ease of playing. But it's the second thing. First place is always consistency. So consistency beats ease of playing. But then if two things are the same consistency, then then it's the ease of playing that's next in line. And I am not ranking, and this is very important for PotD. The time it takes to do the clear, I'm not ranking about that. So like, if a job does the run in 6 hours and one of them does it in 12 hours, it has no impact on my ranking. I don't consider that like important to the ranking. You might disagree with that, but it's my tier list. I make the rules, all right? So, the melees. Every melee, bloodbath. You know, every melee has bloodbath, every melee has a stun, every melee has arm's length. So they have pretty good defensives. In PotD, monsters don't hurt as bad as they do in the other, in the other deep dungeon, Heaven Eye specifically. So bloodbath is actually really strong in PotD, in my opinion. It definitely lets you get away with fighting things that you have no right, no business fighting. Usually, like a typical floor on melee is gonna look like something. It's gonna be something like they fight it, for example, for 181. It's gonna be like you fight a grenade, all right, and then you fight a Wamura Kampa with bloodbath. All right, now you fight a grenade. Okay, now you fight a patrol. Okay, now you fight another Wamura Kampa with bloodbath, right? You just kind of like switch between bloodbath and no bloodbath. And you can use it to also kill some things that usually you would steal for. Like, for example, what's a good example? Like, you might be able to fight, for example, a knight or a bishop if you have bloodbath, rather than using a steal. I know I've done that on my Reaper run, the last time I did Reaper. So it can actually save you from using a steal there and there. It's nice. It's something you do when you have like a raising in backup, you know. Like if you don't have a raising, I don't think you want to try and fight a knight no steal. But then if you have a raising, then you could fight a knight no steal with bloodbath and you're defensive, right? But it can actually make that difference. Stun's very nice too, because you can stun almost everything in PotD. So it's almost always a good defensive maneuver. So anyway, let's start with Dragoon. Dragoon has the highest defensive stat. So it doesn't have any defensive that is not part of the like melee roll kit. But it has just good defensive stats, and it has a small lifesteal too, outside of bloodbath. Now in PotD, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have your Nastron, right? You don't have your life of the dragon phase and everything. Is that right? It's 70. Okay, so you're just doing good honest damage on Dragoon. It's all right. From what I remember, it's okay damage. Not crazy, not bad. But you're like quite tanky and it's quite good. And in PotD, we only really care about viability above like 150. So like everything below 150, it's not even worth to talk about it. And I would expect you to enter 150 with everything at 32. It's all right. It's all right. Like it's definitely the fact that you can like bully a lot of monsters with bloodbath. I think it makes this at least good. It makes it at least good. Now it doesn't like PotD is very debuff oriented. So like I don't know if the good right now will remain a good as we like add more jobs, but at least right now I would call it good. You know, worst of all, I can always just rename the tiers, like if the actual good is, you know, this one instead, but I'd say it's at least good. Like you can't really carry bursts between monsters that well. That's a downside. You're kind of doing like consistent damage on Dragoon, but at least you're tanky. And I think being tanky is pretty useful. Tanky in relation to melees. So next we got Ninja. Ninja's pretty great because lots of kiting power. You can also reset your burst between pulls. Very useful. Now Hide is good in PotD. It's not as good as Heaven on High or Heaven on High. Because the thing with Hide is it only works on sight monsters, not proximity. And usually if something is annoying in PotD, it's proximity, right? So it's rare that you can actually like Like, it's rare. It's gonna let you get away from like a long stretch of monsters. It's useful. Don't get me wrong, especially treasure rooms, which are a bane in the bane of your existence in POTD. There's many treasure rooms that if you have hide, it makes it much easier to do them. And like worst of all, like if the treasure room has 3 proximity monsters, like let's say you get a treasure room on 177, it has like 10 monsters and 3 of them are proximity monkeys. Well, you can always just pull the monkeys and then hide and get out, you know. So it's pretty good, but it's less valuable than Avalon High. Now, Bloodbath on Ninja sucks, and you feel it. You definitely feel it in POTD. I mean, it sucks in relation to the other melees, but then you can kite too, so it's okay usually. It's just weird because it means you're gonna Bloodbath when your burst is down. You know, kind of like counterintuitive. And also something I should mention about the melees is they all have an easy behemoth push. Because something that's going to affect this ranking is the behemoth difficulty. I think the harder the behemoth pushes, the less viable the job is, because it's just going to like tank your consistency, right? And it's like much more difficult than anything else. However, all the melees have an easy push. So all of them don't really like tank points for that. They don't really lose points for that. But overall, Ninja is very strong. Amazing, I don't think it is. It maybe would be amazing if hide was like working well on all the floors, but it doesn't. It's definitely stronger than Dragoon though, so I'll put it in very strong. Also, it also has a shield defensive, which is nice. It can let you do things like monsters like the Iron Course without a steel if you get a lot of burst built up, because you can shield the first jump. Alright, next is Monk. So Monk got a reward recently, which makes it much easier to play. That's good, because that was by far the thing that was the worst about Monk. Is it was just like very hard to play properly. Now it's like very easy. You just press the glowing buttons. That's it. So it's though the thing with Monk is it's like weak. It's weak. It has weak defense. And it has no defensives. It has 0 defensives in POTD. However, Monk has pretty damn good damage in POTD. Pretty high compared to other jobs. And the damage is also very bursty with Tornado Kick. I think it's what's called, right? Like you build to a bait finisher. That move is fucking nuts with Bloodbath, bro. Like... With Bloodbath, if you build up your burst and you Bloodbath, it's ridiculous, like healing and damage. And that kind of helps the no defensive thing. But when that is not up, you really gotta make sure you're fighting like something that you don't need these kind of like buffs for. Like you know what I said about switching between grenades and one more Rampas. You really gotta do something like that non-stop on Monk. Now, the other downside of Monk, quite a popular one, is the fact that you cannot pull something from a distance. I don't think it's that big of a deal in POTD. It's annoying sometimes, because the last floors can be a bit big, but it's rarely, at least in my own runs, it's rarely been like a big issue. But at most, it's gonna lose you maybe 5 seconds there and there, because you just go around a different wall to pull like the monster. And you can pull something from a distance every 90 seconds with Feint. So I don't consider that a big downside. Now, someone mentioned in my chat Godfather. That is a great point. For all the melees, in fact, all the melees have to deal with Godfather, which is a 190 boss. It's quite hard on melees because it's a boss you must kite. You have no choice. You must kite this boss, no matter what job you are except tank. And you know, like if you kite on Dragoon, for example, or Ninja, you have like, you know, at least you can do something from a distance. Monk can do nothing from a distance except build up its OGCD. Godfather, and you have no defensive for Godfather either. So like whenever you're in the 10 buster cycle, all you can do is sprint or feint and potion, right? Like you don't have anything from your job to help with that. So it's definitely losing points for the Godfather fight. You're right. You're right, and I don't. It's definitely not very strong. Like, it's between average or good. I will put it in average for now, but this is another time where one of these jobs might shift around though, because we're gonna run out of space. But for now, I'll put it in average, because I think it's worse than Dragoon. So, Samurai... Samurai is quite squishy. It has like a shitty defensive, but at least that's something. It has a pretty good bloodbath. It can like with the mid arrays, right? Because it can stack up mid arrays. Its dot is awful, but I mean it's awful everywhere, so that's not a big difference. What I like about Samurai is the mid array is a bit like the Monk Tornado Kick, right? It's like a huge potency that you can carry like to a monster that you wish to use it against. And if I'm not wrong, you have the skill, you have Meteo at this level, right? Pretty sure you have it at this level already. So you can have like 2 mid-arrays. They did not have a... They added a new stack to Meteo, but we don't have that yet. No, that's Tsubame. That's Tsubame, sorry. So you can still do like 2 mid-arrays against a monster. If you have like... If you're doing under Bloodbath, it's a bit like Monk. Insane damage, insane healing. Also something that you have that's very nice on the Samurai is that you have the dash back and the dash in. So you can do the thing where the monster's running towards you, you dash in, and then it goes through you, and then you dash back, and this way you avoid another attack. And also specifically, it's the lower GCD, that's also true on Mount. It's kind of nice to do some stagger cutting where you're kind of like punching forward, moving back, punching forward, right? You're kind of like doing that little dance. It's very nice on both of these jobs. But like, I think Samurai has got a little more going for it than Monk though. But like not a lot, honestly. Like what does it have over Monk? It has a bit better mobility, and it has a shitty defensive. And I would say everything else is pretty much the same, but it can kite better, which means the 190 is also much better. I think for this reason, I would put it in good. So Reaper is pretty good in PotD. Pretty good damage, pretty high damage. If I remember correctly from my last run, it's close to Monk. It's a bit higher than Monk. A bit. Not too much, but like it's a bit higher than Monk. So like let's just say it's almost the same than Monk. It has an amazing defensive, like a shield. It has a dash. And you have a lot of room in PotD to like kite around, right? So the dash, it's very unlikely that you don't have space to like maneuver. That's true for every job in PotD. Like you always have a lot of space to move around. So I think dashes are better in PotD than they are in Evan, for example. The only thing that sucks a bit about Reaper is the fact that your range move is a cast time. And that's... So like if you ever have to kite a monster, well, it's like a bad situation to be in, because then you have to like stand still and cast, and as soon as you do like 2 range attacks, basically the monster's gonna be caught up to you and he's gonna start attacking you again. That does mean 190 is like a bit more annoying, but the shield is amazing for like 192. The shield is just like the fact that this is such a high damage job, and it has the shield. And also, it's quite easy to... It's probably one of the easiest jobs to play for, like, melees. It is probably the easiest job to play for melees. I think all of this puts it on very strong. Like, yes, it doesn't have the kiting power of Ninja, but it has higher damage, and it has that absurd shield, which has a low cooldown, too. I think that makes sense. So Viper, I ran this recently. Viper wasn't great. It's kind of like Monk. It is very easy to play too. You're not wrong. It's kind of like Monk, but it with a range attack. The damage of Viper from my own run was actually pretty good. It was pretty good damage. However, you have no defensives at all. And that's it. I mean, it's literally Monk, but like with a range attack. Now, the thing that's nice though is that your range attack is 200 potency rather than 150. And that's a bigger deal in PotD than Evan High, because you can kite. Usually there's more room to kite, and also because your potencies are usually lower at this level in general. So like, you know, 200 in relation to your other potencies is higher on average than in MLI. So for all of this, for like these two reasons, essentially, even though it's pretty similar to Monk, I think I'd be comfortable putting it on. I don't know. Like, would I say it's good? Because see, that's another thing with Bloodbath. No, it's not another thing. It's the same thing. Like, the Bloodbath is better in PotD because you can actually like just tank things longer. And so the fact that the Bloodbath is not bursty on Viper is not that big of an issue. However, you can carry 0 burst on Viper between monsters. 0. Like, if you kill a monster, the next monster, you essentially are doing the same damage, right? It's like a straight line almost. Also, the 190 on this job is not great. Maybe it's about the same as Monk, dude. I don't know. It has things that are a bit better than Monk. It has things that are a bit better than Monk, but I don't think it's like an entire tier above. So I'll put it on the same as Monk. I think that's fair. Alright, now the range EPS. Again, range EPS is my least good role, and I think in PotD it's going to be where it's like the most obvious, because it's gonna be hard for me to rank them. So range EPS have the slow, a bind, an interrupt, all great. The slow is especially good for just fighting monsters in general, because many of them can be slowed. And often you have space, like you have the space to make it happen, right? So if you're just kind of like taking it slow, you can usually get to the key just pulling everything between you and the key. Only reason you can do it is if there's too many push rolls, and that happens sometimes. But I'm decent. You got steals for that, right? So Bard and Dancer, people are not gonna like how I rank these. They are good on the floors. They are at least good on the floors. I will say Bard, I did Bard very recently. It doesn't have great single target damage. It's not to a point where you're gonna time out. Or, well, I mean, you can time out, but it's not to a point where it's like a tank or a healer, but it's definitely less than desirable damage on the floors. Also makes the bosses longer. You still kill everything within 1 steal though, so it's not an issue. Okay, the thing with Bard is the behemoth push is a nightmare. It's super hard to execute, like super hard to execute. And that's gonna tank some points away. But something that Bard has that no other job has, well, except the healers, I guess, is it can like basically self-Esuna itself, remove a debuff. Very useful against multiple monsters in PotD. Can even let you kill a monster that some jobs might not be able to kill, like a Flood Dragon, if you like set up everything properly. But it's good. Like a Claw as well. It's just good on the floors. Like if I'm just looking at the floors, I feel like this might be very strong. If I'm just looking at the floors, because your 190 is also very good, because you're a range EPS, so you lose no uptime. But Behemoth is so bad on Bard. It tanks at least 1 tier. I'm tempted to say 2 of them, but let's go for 1 tier, right? I think it's a very strong job that is brought down by Behemoth. So I put in good. But honestly, I would not even feel bad putting it in average. Just because of Behemoth. It's like, it's really bad, right? Like I said, consistency is number 1. Ease of play is second place. But like the Behemoth it brings down the consistency and also brings down the ease of play like dramatically, right? It's like a big debuff. Okay, Machinist. That's a really strong job. So Machinist, also known as the most popular job in PotD, I believe, at this point. It's essentially what I said about Bard, except your burst is insane. Yeah, crazy good burst. And, well, that's it, essentially. Like your 180 push, not that bad. Not that bad for the 180 push. 190 is super easy. The floors are usually easy. Sorry. The only downside is that you're a DPS, so of course you can die. And you're quite... I mean, you're just Rishi, right? So if you were to get too many bad debuff floors, which is more likely to happen in POTD, because you have less resource to deal with bad debuff floors, then it's gonna get tricky. And I will say too, I think that's true for all the jobs, especially range DPS, is if you've got like something like a no item, it can be tricky to fight a floor, depending on the situation. So like, and this, you might agree to disagree, we might agree to disagree, but I don't think it's godlike, personally. I think it's amazing. I think Machinist is amazing, but I don't think it's godlike. I don't think it's like, it's definitely better than Ninja and Reaper. And you know, as we move more jobs, we'll see like if because like maybe there's gonna be so many things in amazing that I will up Machinist to godlike, but right now I don't think I want to put in godlike. Now see, I did tell you I'm not the best range DPS player, but I'm even trying to like make abstraction of that fact. I still don't think it's godlike because it's really good to burst. You can kill many monsters before they ever reach you. But from my own experience, I've ran Machinist maybe 5 times at this point, 4 or 5 times. From my own experience, it happens that you get a floor and it's just like you can't do it on Red GPS, right? It's like you get a spawn room and then there's a treasure room in front of you and then you have no room to kite, or it's gloom and there's no room to kite, or it's like Garms and it's like 3 Garms coming and you can't kite anything, or it's like, you know, you're on 192, there's like many patrols. Like it's always like, let me put it that way, I think the range GPS are great, but I think they rely on like the floors being good too, right? And I don't even mean the debuffs necessarily, I mean the options and like the actual like physical map. Like if you have a spawn room and it's a 3-way room and there's like bad pulls in every direction and there's a patrol coming your way, I mean there's just no good way to do that on Machinist. Even on Machinist, like you're gonna, like if you have a strength, maybe you can blow up something by kiting, you know, from the hallway into your room, but then if you don't have a strength, then you know it might get tricky. But anyway, I'll just put in amazing for now. Maybe it'll move. Dancer is a lot like Bard. Now I don't think the dance moves being big is as annoying in POTD as it is in the other deep dungeons, because there's actually a lot of space to maneuver. It's kind of like Bard, honestly. However, well, not however, like it's kind of like Bard, and it also has the same issue where the 180 push is like not good. Like it's a push, it's an RNG push, which doesn't mean you can fill it, but it means that depending on how many procs you get, the tighter it's gonna be. And I can assure you, I've done this job twice. Both times I had a flawless 180 rotation, and both times the boss died within the GCD. Like it died on my last GCD. So it's a very tight push. The push itself is definitely easier to like execute than Bard, but it's definitely harder than probably every other job except maybe the tanks, some of the tanks, but it's like it's harder than the average job. But like anyways, with all of this in mind and the fact it's a low damage range DPS too, keep this in mind. Bard and Dancer are low damage, so you know it's not like it's not Machinist damage. Is it very strong? Like the behemoth push is bad, dude. Like it's not as bad as, but I hesitate to put it there because then that's implying they're the same power, and I don't know about that, right? That's why I'm hesitating a bit to put them on the same level. Maybe it's time to actually spread apart the tiers already. Does that look better? One sec. Subpar Monk Viper. Average Dragoon Samurai Bard. Good Dancer, Ninja, Reaper. Amazing Machinist. I mean, okay, let me look at it. Let me look at this for a second. If I were to run Ninja and Dancer, which one do I think I would be more likely to clear? Ninja. Reaper and Dancer? Reaper. Dragoon and Dancer? I think Dancer. I think it deserves to be in the same tier as them. As long as they're ranked relative to each other, the tiers matter less. They are not. They are not ranked in relation to each other. They are not. I'm looking only at the rows there. So I think Dancer deserves to be there. What about Dragoon? Dragoon Samurai, yeah, about the same. Bard is a rough one, bro. It's like a rough one because it's good on the floors, but then it's so bad after that on the boss, right? It's definitely better than Monk and Viper. I mean, I think this is okay. Let me keep it like that for now. We'll see if I shift it later. Now on the casters. I did Black Mage very recently, so it's fresh in my mind. It's not good, dude. It's not great. So casters have sleep, and AoE sleep. That's actually pretty useful. Probably the most useful there. They have well, that's it, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So the monsters don't hit as hard in PotD compared to MLI, but like that on something like Black Mage, you're still like kind of dying super fast to everything. So it's a very skill dependent job, very like prone to losing the debuffs. Also, it's hard to cast anything on this job because you're constantly like getting assaulted by everything. If you have a run where you just find a lot of steals, it's definitely like not as bad as it could be. But if you ever have a run where you don't have steals, like, oh boy. Also, the 180 push is pretty rough, in my opinion, on Black Mage. Definitely harder than an average. The 190 on Black Mage is fucking hard. It's by far the hardest 190 out of every job there. What I will tell you, what most pull ends up looking like on Black Mage on the floors is you pull a monster, like you open the fight with you're in Ice 3. You open the fight with fire, you do like fire 4 2-3 times, then you sleep the monster, get some distance, heal back to full, fire 4 like 2 or 3 times, and then if it's not dead, you sleep again, and then you just do that, right? That's the way you do most monsters, which lets you actually do a lot without steal. It's hard though, and it's also like kind of it's easy to just get kind of destroyed by a patrol because you're taking a while to do a monster. But it's definitely like you know, if you told me I gotta clear Monk or Black Mage, there's no shot I'm even gonna try and do Black Mage. It has to be at least weak. It's pretty bad. Now the changes to Black Mage, specifically in Dawntrail, where that your Thunder is no longer a proc, it's like a guaranteed thing you get when you switch element, but it does very little damage now. It kind of like destroyed the cutting. It's just lucky that we can get around it with sleeping the monsters. They also made another change which is great in PotD actually. It's the fact that now your Ice phase, you can keep it forever with your basically they lowered the level of what is it called? Umbral Soul. So now you can Umbral Soul at this level. That's great. That's great, but the Thunder sucks. So I think these two changes, they kind of cancel each other's. If they did not add the Umbral Soul thing, I think this would actually be a crap job. One of the worst. But because they added the Umbral Soul, I think it kind of elevates it to weak right now. So that's where I'll put it. So Summoner is a natural caster that does damage and can kite. It's kind of like Baby Machinist. Plays very similar. As a shield, that's the thing it has that Machinist doesn't have. Though Machinist has like a single target damage reduction thing, which is like a similar concept, but the shield is better. It lets you get away with doing things like a no steel course, for example, iron course, because you can survive the crit from the shield. It's pretty good, honestly. Like it's also, you have access to sleep. It's like Black Mage, except well, it's a better, because then you're probably gonna kill the monster really fast even if you sleep it, right? It's pretty good. Like, if you told me I have to clear on Summoner compared to like Reaper or Ninja, I think I would be more likely to clear on it. I don't think I would. I don't think it's better than Machinist, because it's essentially the same job, but less damage a bit, and cannot slow the monster, right? And can't interrupt the mimics too. So it's like, it's just a worse Machinist. That's the best way to describe it. Red Mage, the old king. The old king of the place. So Red Mage used to be king because it was like, that was before my time even. Like this was just a different time where like healing yourself was the way to do it. This was before regen potions. However, now we have regen potions. And because of that, Red Mage really fell off, because like, what is Red Mage? It's a caster, sleep, etc., everything. It's a caster with okay damage that can heal itself, but it's still a caster. And it cannot kite particularly well. Like, the way you kite on Red Mage is like, you cast once, then you move. Then you cast once, then you move, right? It's like a very... very like you can't chain too many moving together. You always have to alternate. So that means the monsters will catch up to you easily. Now, I will say Virtue is nicer in PotD than in Evan, in my opinion, because I think you're able to face tank more things with your Virtue. Still not like amazing. It's definitely not like amazing, but it's nice to have. So like, think of Red Mage as like it's kind of like a worse summoner almost. Like the heal's very nice to get through. Well, because the heal's very nice if you're gonna get bad debuffs, right? Like, if you get a no item floor, well, on Summoner, you can't necessarily fight it, but on Red Mage, you're more likely to be able to fight it. However, it's a bit like Evan High, where if you don't have a steal, it doesn't necessarily mean you can do the monster no steal. Like, for example, if you pull in Iron Course on Red Mage, it doesn't matter if you can heal yourself, because you still can get one shot from a crit auto, right? Whereas something like Summoner would actually survive it because of the shield. So, like, it's a good job. It's like okay, something. I think there's a thing I have to mention specifically for Red Mage. It has a unique position amongst all the melees. Sorry, not the melees. Amongst all the DPS jobs. It's the only DPS that does not have a 180 push to do. So like, for this reason, it's a bit special, because it's like you are accessing DPS damage, but you don't actually have to do 180 like the way DPS are supposed to do it. Your 190 is okay on Red Mage. I mean, be able to heal yourself is nice. I guess on Red Mage, all I can really say, like, TLDR is that you can't really rely on your heal, like, to heal you every time you take damage. It's nice to have, but if you're just, like, spamming your heal every time you're fighting something, you will actually run into time issues on this job. It's actually it's rough to rank this one. Like, I realize it's because it does things better than Summoner. It also does things worse than Summoner. It does things better than these, but also things worse. It's definitely not average. Like, it's definitely, I would clear Red Mage over Dragoon any day. Would I clear over Dancer every day? Yes. But I'm starting to feel like Dancer does not deserve to be there. What about Reaper? Would I clear Reaper or Red Mage? I don't know. Would I clear Ninja or Red Mage? I feel I would clear Red Mage before Reaper. Rough one. That's a rough one. Like Reaper or... I mean, I feel I would clear Red Mage before Reaper. I feel... Dude, it's so weird. I don't know. That's a weird place to be in. I mean, it's... Logically, that's where it made sense. Because it's worse than Machinist. It's better than Dancer, in my opinion. It's better than... It's close or better than Reaper. And I think it's a bit better than Ninja. Like Summoner. Let me think about it. Like, I'm on the last set on Summoner. Would I rather be Summoner or Red Mage on the last two sets? Like, if I'm gonna enter 181, would I rather be Red Mage or Summoner? I think I would rather be Red Mage. I feel like it's more consistent. Because if I'm Summoner and I get a no item, I'm fucked. It's like Serenity. If I get this on Red Mage, especially if I have a pre-steal, I can do it even if I have no room to kite. Yes, it's worse in some situations, but I think because PotD is so reliant on beating the debuffs, I think it might actually be very strong, which is surprising. I didn't think it would make the cut for in the upper tiers, but I think looking at it, I think that's where it should be. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. Nice distribution. We're making a pyramid. Alright, Picto. Okay, Picto, bro. This one's fresh. I did this one 2 times already. Picto is like Machinist. It's like Machinist. But you... It's like a Machinist that can have 3 drills. 3 or 4 drills stacked. But then once your drills like run out, you can only cast, right? That's the way you should see Picto. Now you can't slow, you can't interrupt. But this is a bit... So you remember, if you saw my very old Evil tier list, you know I put Summoner at the top because I was like, oh, you can kill every monster before they even reach you. But I think I was kind of like on Cropium. Like, not Cropium, but I was on like high on my horse there. I was a little too overconfident. Picto, though, can actually kill almost anything before it gets to it, except if there's a Gloom or a new ability. So it's still vulnerable to debuffs, but it's not that vulnerable to no item. It's like close to Machinist, honestly. Like, I honestly think it's amazing. Now, caster bias, maybe, but I do think it's a bit worse than Machinist. I think it's slightly worse than Machinist. But I don't think it's like an entire tier worse. I think it's just a bit worse. So my Picto run, I did a no item 196, I think. I did a no item floor. I had no strain, no steal. I fought like... I fought until I was out. And I required a lot of room to kite, but I was able to do it, and I feel like this was exactly the way it would have went if I was Machinist too. So I think that floor alone convinced me that they're pretty close. Of course, you can't slow, and you can't kite when your burst is down. So if you get a gloomed floor, yes, you're like pretty vulnerable, but if you get a gloom floor, you also can't really kite on Machinist, right? But then Machinist, I guess, you can kite in a shorter like distance because you can slow the monster. You can also bind it. You have sleep on Picto though. Keep this in mind. Sleep is I actually made use of sleep quite often because you can sleep a lot of things in PotD. So I actually like, because if you burst the monster with all your things and then you sleep it, you can just draw your things again and then you can burst it again and then it's gonna die. Also, I didn't even mention that. That's kind of a big deal, actually. You can draw all your things out of combat on Picto, and when you do, it's a DPS gain because it's a shorter GCD if you do it. So, like the classic floor on Picto looks like it's just like you're just drawing everything out of combat, pull something, kill it instantly, draw everything out of combat, pull something, kill instantly, and just kind of chain them like that. And then whenever you have nothing ready, you're kind of like a caster. You're like a black mage when you have nothing ready, and when that's the case, you just pull something very easy. And you have smudge too. You're like movement skill. That's very good. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. A bit worse than Machinist, but like not enough to be an entire tier below. Do I think there's ever a situation where Summoner does something that Picto can't? Yes. Kite. Like if I'm let's say you're doing a... Like let's say you accidentally pull something and you're not ready to fight it. I think Summoner would fare way better than Picto. Because Summoner, you can just like kind of keep doing damage while you're moving. And you can also do the big shield. You have a shield in Picto too, but... More forgiving on mistakes. That's a good point. I do think Picto is... Like, you know, I think it's way harder to play Picto than it is to play Machinist. Well, way harder. I think it's harder to play Picto than Machinist. But because we're looking at consistency #1, I don't think it taints it below. I would... but if you know, if you wrangle that tier list away from me and you put Picto there, I would think your opinion like is fine. I think you could hard to put it in either of these, but personally I think it's amazing. I'll put it there. Also, you got a very easy beam-out push on Picto. So one last thing about Picto, the 190 is hard, but it sounds harder than it actually is, because when you actually do it, you realize that you can smudge every cycle. Every 10 buster cycle you can smudge. So all you have to do is smudge right before the 10 buster, right? And then you're always fine. So it's really not as bad as it... Because I thought it would be very bad, but it wasn't that bad. Alright, so next tanks. Tanks in PotD, the upside is that you don't die to monsters easily. The other upside is that your 190 push is... Sorry, not push. Your 190 is significantly easier than any other job. So, you know, if you struggle with 190, this is the jobs for you. These are the jobs for you. Now, the downside is your time management has to be more tight because you just don't do as much damage as the DPS jobs, right? That means you have to use your palms more effectively. However, time management is pretty it's not as easy as ZO, but it's not as hard as Evil. So the time management in PotD, as long as you're just fighting non-stop, is really not as bad. Really not that bad. You gotta know what to do though. You gotta know what to do. This is the tanks is definitely jobs where I think like watching a guide is like more important than the other jobs, because you want to know at least like what kind of pumps you want to be using when. And tanks are of course very strong defensively. They have a stun and interrupt, etc. They're gonna get punched. Well, that's on paper. In practice, it's not always like that. So anyway, let's begin with Paladin. So Paladin is okay. Now, the thing with Paladin is it has quite low damage in PotD. It doesn't have like the whole magic phase thing. It only has its 1, 2, 3 and that's it pretty much. And its damage sucks. It can't really kite because of that too. And it has Clemency. It's okay. I like it less there than in Evil because the damage is lower, right? But it does let you do like with the Clemency, you could do some like awful flighted no ability floor, or you could do a no item gloom, maybe even. Like you could do floors that no other tank can do, I think, even Warrior. But the thing is that your damage is so bad on Paladin that you're unlikely to do floors like that anyway, time-wise. So it's a nice to have. It's not like a huge deal though. Also, something tanks are gonna do is landmines. They all have invulns for them. Clemency is pretty okay for landmines, but I think the landmines in PotD are quite easy on tank. So none of them rank at like that high for just the landmines if we're just looking at just the landmine. Like what really holds back Paladin is just the bad damage. Also, the push 180 is pretty rough on Paladin. It's a very long push requiring 4 or 5 meteor last time I did it, I think. So it's a very long push. It's not like a very strict rotation, but it's like the way the push is like you have to use 4 Clemencies, so you have to like space them out correctly. It's a bit hard. It's a bit hard. I think this is not as good as it could be because of the push. Also, the AoE damage of Paladin is god-awful as well. So, like, even if you're gonna do some AoE pulls, because they're a bit more viable in PotD on the higher floors, even if you're gonna do it, it's not great. It's kind of average, honestly. Like, maybe it's a bit harsh, but I think it's kind of average. Maybe it could go in good. We'll see. Alright, Warrior is all I said about Paladin, except your damage is actually much better. Basically, the entire gameplay of Warrior is you just play around Berserk. Every 60 seconds, you just try and make sure you have some felt leaves, pull a monster, attack it, kill it, and then you just, while your Berserk is coming up, you just pull something else while it's coming up, just like, you know, just get your Storm Eye buff, just get your felt leaves, and then you just kite the monster a little bit, etc. I mean, that's the gameplay on tanks, but I think it flows really well on Warrior, personally. Now, what Warrior is really... Warrior is really good. Because Warrior raw intuition is... It's like Clemency. But you have this on a job that actually does like okay damage as far as like tanks are concerned. And a job that it doesn't need you to GCD that heal. Now that still is a game changer for this place because... So essentially, because of this, and because of Clemency too, right? It's the same for like for Paladin and Warrior. It's just that Warrior, it's different on Warrior. If you get a no item floor, you can usually do it. Now, you remember when I said that debuffs are like the biggest enemy of this place, of PotD? Because here's how it works. If you have no item, on most jobs, you have to Serenity. However, on Warrior, you don't have to Serenity. You can just fight it with raw intuition, unless it's something like a Gloom no item, right? But that's more rare. So because you don't have to Serenity this, now your Serenities can be used for like other things, which usually is like a no ability or a Gloom on tank. And see it that way. If you have no item, how many solutions do you have for it? You have three Serenities. That's the only solution. What solutions do you have for a no ability? You have 6. Because you can do 3 Rage, or you can do 3 Serenities. So like, it kind of doubles your options. That's always the way I've seen Warrior and Paladin. It doubles your options because the no item is not like the GG debuff for you. It's no ability. And so with all of this in mind, Warrior also has a... I would say it's a bit harder than Machinist. But it's like probably the easiest tank push right now. It's easier than Black Mage. It's like an average. I would call it an average 180 push on the boss. Very easy 190. Essentially 180 is the big wall on Warrior. So the difficulty is managing your time. But and see, this is where it's gonna get like controversial, because if you manage your time well on Warrior, I honestly think you almost can't lose. Like, I think this is a godlike job. Because if you manage your time well, which honestly is not even that complicated. It's gonna be doing landmines on 3 floors. It's gonna be using Serenity on anything that's like no ability or like a bad Gloom or something. It's gonna be spamming your flights, your altars on the next set. And then last set is just gonna be your resolves, right? If you just do the plan, if you just execute the plan, you can almost guarantee the win on this job every time. Like, it feels weird to put it in Godlight after I didn't even praise it that much, and then I just kind of shoved it in Godlight, but it just is, right? If we're looking at consistency, I think it's the king. Now, if we're looking at ease of playing, I don't think it's easier than Machinist. I think it's easier than Picto, but I don't think it's easier than Machinist to clear overall. However, I think if you play well, it clears more consistently. It's godlike until you get no ability 4 times in a set and then question existence. Yeah, but see it that way. What if you were a DPS and you got no item 4 times? At least if you get no ability 4 times, you can Serenity 2 times and Rage 2 times, you know? So there's always a solution. But then if you get Serenity 4, if you get no item 4 times on a DPS, that's the real yikes. So we can agree to disagree. So if you think someone thinks that Machinist should be higher and Warrior is lower, I think you are entitled to that opinion. Personally though, for me it's not even a contest. If you ask me what would I rather clear, Warrior or Machinist, or I die, it's Warrior every time. It's like it's not a question. It's for me Warrior if you execute the plan. And the plan really is just use your commanders whenever it's gonna gain you time and then fight non-stop. If you do the plan, it's almost unlosable. So next job. Dark Knight is pretty good. All I've been saying about Warrior and Paladin is true, except you don't have sustain on Dark Knight. But you have like good damage. It's a bit like Warrior. Pretty much like Warrior damage, so it's definitely better than Paladin in that regard. Not having sustain definitely like knocks it down a bit though, because now suddenly if you get a no ability, no item floor, it's not as easy to do it. You can still do it. Don't get me wrong. I had a no ability Dark Knight floor on 196 at some time. I had a no ability blind floor with no steel, no strength. I did it, and it was a freaking nightmare, but I did it. So like, I can't put it in Godlight because it's like not having sustain it sucks, right? Like you have like sustain, but it's abyssal drain. It's not really real sustain. Like it's not like raw intuition. So it's also the 180 push on this. I'm actually like I haven't really tested it, but they changed Dark Knight a bit. And essentially, they made Dark Knight, they removed some of its damage, so it does a bit less damage now. It made the 180 push a lot more tight, from what I heard. So the 180 push used to be very comfy on Dark Knight, and from what I've heard, now it's actually pretty tight, within 1 GCD, if I'm not wrong. Like, that's tight. I think because of this, I'm not comfortable putting this in Amazing, even though it's, like, pretty damn close to Amazing. Like, cause you know, like, think of Warrior, but you remove the raw intuition. That's essentially Dark Knight. It did lose damage. To be fair, it lost damage. So now I'm not sure if the damage is actually comparable to Warrior. But I think because of the behemoth being harder, I just want to put in very strong now. I think it's very strong. Maybe it's Amazing if the damage is actually still competitive with Warrior, but very strong because of the push. Take the Warrior but remove everything and makes it good, and you have Dark Knight. I mean, the healing is definitely what pushes like Warrior and Amazing, but you need like the damage and the healing to be Godlight. You need the damage and the healing to be in Godlight. Dark Knight has the damage, I think, but is missing the healing. Paladin has the healing, but is missing the damage, and missing the damage is a much bigger deal, right? Because that's the big deal, because like, how is losing the damage losing 5 tiers for Paladin? Well, it's because if I play Warrior, I can clear without RNG. Because I know I just use what I have in my bag, and I clear no matter what I pick up in the chest, right? Paladin is not true. Like, Paladin, maybe I'll need like a Rage to clear, and maybe I'll need like a few Strength. So like, suddenly, there's a lot more RNG involved. Just because I lost the damage. Dark Knight in the middle. I think it's not wrong. I'll keep it there. So Gunbreaker is the thing I have the least experience on, the least amount of experience on. So unfortunately, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to properly rank it. It's damage-wise, I'm pretty sure it's just like Warrior. I don't remember it being higher or lower. It has very shitty sustain. It has the worst in Vuln too. It has from what I remember, this was a rough behemoth push because I failed it twice. However, I don't remember what the behemoth push was like. I remember it was a tincture and then it just was really hard for me to do it. But I did the push before they buffed the potion to 30 seconds, so like this is rough. This one is rough for me to say, like my gut feeling is that it's probably about the same as Dark Knight. But I actually have nothing to say about it because I have not played this again. Like since I did it once a long time ago, and then I never ran it again. I would venture to say there's no way it's as bad as Paladin. So it's either good or very strong, and I think putting it in the same tier as Dark Knight is probably fair. Like I'm seeing them as warriors without sustain, essentially. Alright, now the healers. The last kind. Healers are pretty interesting in POTD. Sleep is pretty good. You can unaggro things easily too in POTD because there's a lot of room to guide. So there's like a path. The dots tend to be very strong for healers in POTD. Not true for every single one, but I think it's true for all of them except Sage. I think White Mage is a medium heal. It's like medium damage dot. Healers are like tank but worse. Pretty similar to Avalon High. However, it's less worse in POTD because there's less things that kill you instantly with like crit auto. So yeah, that's about healer. I mean, healer, their upside is that they can heal themselves. What does healing yourself give you? Well, the biggest upside by far is that means you don't have to do 180. The 180 push is non-existent. Every single healer can just out-heal the meteors. It also means 190 is harder or easier depending on like what you found difficult in the fight, because it's easier to survive, but it's harder to kill the boss before your steel drops. So it depends. I guess your overall it kind of makes it neutral, right? So healers anyway, their upside is that they can do AoE pulls kind of like lazily. Like they can just like put dot on two things, three things are not that bad to fight, and then they're just gonna like keep moving away from them, just keep cutting them while they can check chests. They get punished quite hard from mimics. That's something to keep in mind. So first one, White Mage. White Mage pretty good. Also the thing, you're gonna be doing the landmines on the healers too, preferably. I think none of them have difficult landmines, so that used to not be true, but at this point none of them have difficult landmines for POTD, so all of them are pretty equal there. Specifically for White Mage, you can just only the landmines. You can like stun the monsters and then step on the landmine, and then you still have a 3-4 seconds of no damage taken. White Mage specifically has a nice burst, very nice burst with ass size and presence of mind. It's good. It's a bit like Warrior, where you can clear what you have on the good healers. Like if you can clear almost everyone what you have on healer. The only difference is because you don't have a niche people to work with, then the odds of just getting blown up by something, are much higher. So like for example, if you get a no item floor on Warrior, I can just raw intuition every monster. If I get a no item floor on White Mage, well, there's still some things that I can't really fight. Like I can't really pull a Bicep because I have no shield. So like there's a risk I would get one shot from crit auto, right? So it's not quite the same, but they're still pretty strong. They're still pretty strong in my opinion. Overall. So anyway, let's begin with so White Mage has some burst. Actually, the burst in relation to the HP of the monster is a lot of damage in my opinion for POTD. Again, the healers, though, the easiest way for me to rank them is just to compare them to other jobs one by one. Like, would I say I'm more likely to clear on the White Mage and Paladin? Yes. White Mage and Dark Knight? White Mage and Red Mage? See, I love White Mage, plain White Mage, so I'm trying not to be too biased there. And we're not talking scoring, we're talking clearing. I think I'll put it there for now. I think it's good. Is it very strong? I don't know. Like I hesitate to put it on the same level as the sustain-less warriors, as we call them. Okay, Scholar, however, is shit. I do not enjoy Scholar, and I don't think it's very good. Now, it has some things going on for it, though. Specifically, if you're doing like Lost, Pomander of Lost, or Pomander of Rage, your fairy still, it keeps healing you during it, which can help offset a bad box. if you don't have purities for a pox. That's cool. However, single target damage is awful for Scholar, so like, and it's a bit like Paladin, where the damage is awful enough where you cannot consistently clear this without pickups. Or like crazy hard AoE pulls, which are out of the scope of a clear. So I just don't think it's that good. Now, something I didn't really talk about, and that's for like mostly tanks and healers. Tanks have way easier rages than everyone else because they have a bigger HP pool. Because often if you do a no-steal rage or a no-steal rezo, both are true, on tank you can afford to do it because you can tank, I don't know, like 5 or 6 hits before you die. DPS cannot afford that luxury. Like DPS, if you do a no-steal rezo or a rage, it's usually just you're dead within 2 or 3 hits at the end game. So you gotta be careful. Now, healer is a middle ground. Like healer, they can't tank, but they can usually kind of stack. They can stack healing over times on them, which lets you pull a lot without steal. But you can't like AoE pull. Like I can't rezo like 4 monsters on White Mage, but I can like rezo them faster, right, one by one. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a bit better at using rezo and rage than DPS, but it's worse than tank. But yeah, White Mage good. That made sense. And Scholar, like I said, I don't think it's that good just because its damage is just bad. All the healers can sleep. Thank you for reminding me. All the healers can sleep, and sleep is useful. Oh, I think I didn't mention that actually. Because you can on-aggro the monsters pretty easily in PotD. Yeah. I mean, like I said, tanks, they can... healers can use Rezo and Rage and Loss more effectively than DPS, but I don't think they can use them more effectively than tanks. I just don't think Scholar is good. Like, I'm sorry, but... Like, if you ask me to clear PotD, do I go on Dragoon or Scholar? I go on Dragoon, right? Samurai, yes. Bard, yes. Despite the push, I would still do it on Bard. You know, that's funny. Paladin, I feel like Paladin and Scholar, though, I almost think both are close. So maybe Paladin should be ranked a little lower. But having more HP is nice, because you can do no item floors way more easily. The thing about Scholar is you have a GCD shield. So, technically, you can't really... You can't really lose to something that you can't fight, because you can always shield yourself. However, you have the same issue of, like... having to do damage or heal yourself. So like it's honestly very similar to Paladin. I feel like it's like a Paladin that doesn't have to do a bad 180 push, and it does less damage than Paladin. Don't get me wrong, it's less damage than Paladin. 190 on Scholar. I mean, it's all the it's like all the healers. It's pretty tight if you don't want to steal twice. Does it do less damage than Paladin? I mean, I don't have any numbers to back it up. I feel like it probably does, but I haven't played Paladin since they deleted its damage, so I'm not sure. I am really unsure. I kind of want to put both there. I'll put both there for now. Maybe I'm gonna shift one up, but we'll see. Alright, Sage really good. Sage, I think, is really good in PotD. Sage is like White Mage damage wise. However, you have a spammable shield that you can spam while it has no cast bar. You can spam a shield on yourself. So now everything I said about fighting monsters that you don't have a steal for is like untrue. It's not true for Sage, because on Sage I can totally fight a Bicep as long as I shield every time the 10 monster is coming, which means I need to know when the 10 monster is coming, which means I need the knowledge. So this is kind of like a lot harder to play than something like Machinist. Because on Machinist I don't really care when the 10 monster comes out, but on Picto I do. Sorry, on Sage I do. I need to know when it comes out because I need to shield for it. Because if I shield, like, whenever, well, the next auto attack is gonna, like, take it off, and then I'll shield again, and then I'll take it off, right? I'm just gonna get stuck in the shield loop. I just want to shield before. Iwi pulls are so pretty good on Sage. But you know, once you reach 185 plus, the Iwi pulls become less enticing. Same for everyone else. However, it's very strong. I did a Sage semi recently, and I felt like it was very strong. It did feel weak in Gloom though. Like Gloom, no steal felt rough. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's very strong. Yeah, about the same as Dark Knight and Gunbreaker. I think that's fair. Gunbreaker, I'm not sure if it should be up or down. We'll see later. Alright, Astro. So I did Astro yesterday. It's very fresh in my mind, though I was doing a scroll run. So they reworked Astro quite heavily. They did, they gave you your defensive cards back. And they gave you 2 stacks of light speed, which is really good. So Astro's weird because up to like 180, I think it's like if I was looking at just like the up to 180 part, I think it's strong, dude. Like good or very strong. But then once you reach 181, like oh boy, right? Like once you stop being able to AoE, it gets super hard and super slow. Opening a single mimic, although like it is a time loss on everyone, but like opening a single mimic on the Astro is like 2 or 3 minute loss plus box, so it's even more. It's not good. Now the defensive cards were great. They were great, and also Astro is much easier to play now. But it was still very hard to try and like win. Now in my case I was scoring, so there was more difficulty involved, but I still don't think it's like... I still think it's harder than Black Mage. Now I think what I did last time is I might have put it 2 tiers below. Now it's like only 1 tier below. Because like Black Mage really sucks. However, if you have a Black Mage run where you just keep finding steal, it's doable. It's not like impossible. If you have a run on Astro where you just keep finding steal, I mean, that's good, but that's not like you don't win with that, right? Like you need more than that. You just need more. It's less consistent. Like it's less consistent. Like if you put a gun to my head and you tell me to clear Black Mage or Astro, it's a bit like in Evil High. It's like, you know, I'm gonna say my prayers, but I would still attempt it on Black Mage rather than Astro. Alright, let's go over this. I felt like I made this one really fast compared to the Evil one. Anyway, let's look at this. So, do I think that Warrior is better than Machinist? Yes. Do I think it's better than Picto? Yes. Do I think Machinist and Picto are the same level? I do think Machinist a bit better than Picto, but I think they're fairly close. Like, it bursts a lot more than Machinist, and also it does the out of combat things. It can't slow though, that's the downside. If Picto could slow, maybe it would be godlike. Maybe. But it can't. Very strong. What we got very strong? We got Summoner. Summoner's worse than Picto? Yes. Yeah. They both have a shield. They both have a shield. Worse than Machinist, yes. Is it about the same as Red Mage? Red Mage is the surprising one. I can't believe it's up there, but like, does it like would I rather run Red Mage or Summoner? I would probably rather run Red Mage. I think it's harder to pull off, but I would rather run Red Mage personally. I feel like it's better for like bad debuff prevention, which is what's likely to kill you in PotD. I'll keep it there. Okay, Dark Knight, Gunbreaker are rough ones. Because like, would I rather run a Dark Knight than a Red Mage? I feel like I would rather run a Dark Knight. However, I have not played Dark Knight since they nerf its damage a bit and the behemoth push is harder. I think before I would have put it there. I think now I'll put it there to be safe, but it could really go in either of these tiers. Gunbreaker is a bit the same, but I'm like kind of like between these two. Because I've not run Gunbreaker in a long time, and I do remember the push being hard, but like that was 2 years ago. I have no clue if it got changed. But it should kind of follow Dark Knight. I feel like wherever you put Dark Knight is probably gonna be where Gunbreaker is too. Sage. So if I were to run Red Mage or Sage, which one would I run? I would rather run Sage. Summoner and Sage? I would rather run Summoner. Sorry, Sage. Dark Knight and Sage, I would rather run Dark Knight. Sage and Picto. Gun to my head. If I don't clear, I die. Picto or Sage? Oh. So that's a rough one, you know? They're close. They're very close. Does that make sense? Or is that unconventional? Is that hipster? Is that a hipster choice? I think that's a bit hipster. Like, can I really say that Sage is the same power as Picto and Machinist with a straight face? Also, ease of playing. Ease of playing factors in, because it's much harder to play good healer than it is to play good Machinist and good Picto. But like deadass, if I have to clear right now, do I go Sage on Machinist? I think I go Machinist. But do I go Picto or Sage? I think I'll put it in very strong. It's like close. If it wasn't so hard to play good healer, I think I might put in amazing. But it's like because I keep thinking like, yes, you can do wee pulls, but it's way harder than everything else. And because they're all so close in consistency, I guess I'll use that to like lower it a bit. Sorry, Sage enjoyers. Alright, Ninja. Ninja compared to Summoner. I'd rather be Summoner. Compared to Red Mage, I'd rather be Red Mage. Ninja and Reaper. Any favorite? Ninja, Reaper. I almost would rather be Reaper. But then I would not rather be Red Mage and Reaper. So they're about the same. I don't like the Dancer being there. Like, would I rather run Dancer or Ninja? Like, bro, that 180 push. That 180 push sucks. Okay, I very much so want to put it down there. I'll leave it there. I'll assume my personal range bias is affecting this. Probably if you don't dislike Dancer as much as me, it probably belongs there. If you dislike it as much as me, maybe it should be an average. Because like both times, I've heard people, they have a good push on Dancer. Both times I did the push was to the GCD with everything perfectly executed, so... Maybe it's the Lalafell having less dexterity or something. I don't know, dude. White Mage. I mean, is White Mage worse than Sage? I think it is. I think it's objectively worse POTD than Sage. There's no way around it. I mean, would I rather be Red Mage or White Mage? I mean, for fun, I'd rather be White Mage, but this is not fun tier list. I'd rather be Red Mage. Summoner? Summoner, White Mage? I'd rather be Summoner. Like, not having a shield makes it too easy to get blown up. I think it's fine there. Dragoon. Can you White Mage dash the 190 tank buster now as well? Yes, you can. Is it up every cycle? I don't remember, because I think it's 60 seconds, right? And I think the cycle is a little shorter than that. So probably you can't do it every time. Unless it's 40, and I don't remember. But I vaguely remember 60 seconds. You don't have a shield though. But the dash is still very nice, yes. It's 60, oh yeah, so you don't have it every time. So Dragoon compared to Ninja, I think it's worse. Reaper, I think Reaper is better. Dragoon, I guess it's worse than Dancer. Not sure I 100% agree, but... Samurai, same as Dragoon. I feel like Samurai is worse than Dragoon. The dash, the mobility was the thing that kind of pushed me over, wasn't it? I think it was the mobility that kind of pushed me over. Third Eye is okay on 190, but it's kind of trash everywhere else. I mean, I think Samurai is a bit worse, probably. But not like an entire tier below, just a bit worse. Bard... I mean, Bard is kind of like Dancer. Is the push bad enough for me to say that it's about the same consistency as Dragoon? Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think it's the same as Monk. I think it's better than Monk, but... that feels fair. So Viper... I mean, Viper is like Monk. They're like copy-paste. They're almost the same. So like, you know... Do I think Viper is worse than Dragoon? Yes. Because these have shitty armor. And no defenses. Worse than Samurai. Maybe I'm too generous with Samurai. I mean, the Bloodbath's great on Monk and Samurai. The Bloodbath being bursty is great. Maybe Monk should be lower. I don't know. Does that... Sorry, Samurai. Does that make more sense? I don't like... Logically, this made sense because like Samurai is kind of shitty defensively, but I just I'm just thinking back of my own runs, and I'm like, I just don't feel like it's as hard on Samurai than Monk. I don't know why. I don't know why exactly. Like, I guess it's a combination of the third eye being up like often, even though it sucks. The Bloodbath being like very bursty with the Midari maybe, and then the dash probably makes a big difference too. Yeah, okay. I think it's fine. I'm overthinking. Now, Paladin and Scholar are rough. I don't think a tank should be that low. Paladin is rough because I haven't ran it since they deleted its damage. But like subpar, bro, like really, do I think I would clear as often on Paladin than Scholar? Hey, that's a bell curve. That's almost a perfect bell curve. Almost. Close. I mean, the Scholar, I don't think it's as bad as Black Mage. Like, I'm trying to think of... I just gun to my head, Monk or... Gun to my head. Monk or Scholar? I mean, how do you lose on Monk? You don't find steals. You don't find steals for a long time. How do you lose on Scholar? You don't find... Probably you need like a rage. You don't find like a rage and some strength to fight. Some amount of strength. Probably you have to Serenity any Gloom floor too. Or rage it. Monk can do a Gloom with Steel Strength. No, I'll put in subpar. I've decided. This is my final POTD tier list.